Hello, I'm Cressa Glenn, and this is Parent Power Hour number 3. I'm from LaVergne Lake Elementary, and I just want to share with you some things that I've learned from Kirk Martin and from my own personal parenting. My oldest daughter will be 21 on Saturday, and I have 4 children, and this is from my personal experience, some things that we're going through at home and just working on, and some things that I think are working for me. I hope it would work for you as well. First of all, I think it's important that we know our kids inside and out. We need to work with nature, not against it. Our kids are wired this way on purpose. There are no accidents. We need to understand what the kids like, what their gifts are, what their talents are, what their passions are, because this is what brings them satisfaction. Our kids are artistic, musical, and perfectionists. We need to use these gifts that they have. It's important for our kids to play, to pursue their interests, to celebrate the advantages that they have. Sometimes the advantages that they do have are forgotten because of the issues that take place inside the classroom or sometimes at home even. We need to have a no excuse policy, that we need to be proactive, not reactive, to know what's going to come ahead, because if we know the things that are, if we're proactive instead of reactive, then we'll have a more calm environment in our homes. We need to meet the needs of our children instead of treating behaviors that they have, because if we just only treat the behaviors, then other behaviors will just keep popping up. The more that we treat the need, then another one pops up instead of treating the needs that they really have internally. We need to understand that the manifestation of behaviors is a result of them trying to get a need that's internally not met. They're trying to get those things met. So we need to understand the child from the inside. There are basically only three essential needs that they have. The first of one is order. Our kids want to have order and sequence in their lives. They want to have stimulation, and they want to have independence. And most of the behaviors come from these internal needs not being met. So we need to just find out which ones aren't being met and figure out a way to meet these needs. Basically, there are 3 P's in parenting. The first, I believe, is the most important. Patience, 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 and more patience. This seems to just come up every day, that I just think to myself, be patient, this will pass. And then the other one is perspective. Sometimes we're overwhelmed by the situation that's happening, and we lose perspective of what really is going on in their life and what need they're trying to be met, because we have a different perception of what they're trying to do. And then the other one is projecting. Sometimes we're afraid of what's to come, that our children are going to be in our living room till they're 30 years old and they're never going to leave. But they are, and it's just projecting about what our feelings are when it's just a small season of time, and that they're not always going to be there as they grow up and they leave. We need to be careful not to project that they aren't going to be with us till they're 30 years old. Sometimes we react to our children's behavior out of fear and anxiety. These are some things to remember, some pointers that I got along the way. That we never want to compare or treat kids the same. Each one of them is such an individual. I can think of my oldest daughter and the needs that she had, so much different from my youngest daughter and the needs that she has. Completely different kids, and I just have to treat them as individuals and raise them as individuals. They have different needs and different things that bring them satisfaction. Also, I think we need to remember when we were kids. I remember when I was a little girl, I would disappear all day. No one would know where I was the entire day. And I'd be up climbing in a tree, stuffing caterpillars in my pocket, and I wouldn't be home till it was dark with the caterpillars still in my pocket. And I think that we're so close to our kids. We watch their every move because we think that there's so much more danger now than when I was a girl 42 years ago or 40 years ago. And I think that because we're closer to them and we watch them so much more through a magnifying glass, we see more issues. And there were probably a lot more issues when we were younger, but nobody knew about it because we were out playing. Also, I think it's so important to remember that school success does not always equal life success. In my classroom, I always think that, not every child is going to be a doctor or a lawyer, or even a teacher. There's so many other things that they can be successful at. And it doesn't, just because they can't get a perfect score on tests, or maybe they score low every time, it does not mean they're not going to be successful. And I always try to treat each of my kids knowing that maybe they're not going to be that top-notch profession, but maybe they're going to be a top-notch mother or father, or whatever they do, that they would do it with excellence. Life success is what's important to me more than anything else. I think that school success is important, and I think as a teacher, I used to always think that if my children are not successful in school, then how are they going to be successful in life? But as I've gone through the years, I've noticed that there are so many other people that are successful at life that didn't do very well at school. I know people that are illiterate that didn't do very well, they couldn't make it through school. They are very successful business owners, and they do just fine. They're very happy with themselves, and that's the goal anyway. I just think, are they happy? Let them be that way then. And I think also, I thought about this more this year than any other year when I went to the Calm Parenting, listened to the CDs, and especially the teacher CDs, is that in the school, kids they're asked to sit still for so long and pay attention for long periods of time, and to memorize facts, to have instant recall, and to be independent workers. This is what they're required to do, but there are things that we can do to accommodate them so that they don't have to sit still and they'll still be learning. I've actually confiscated 4 rocking chairs around the school so that my kids can move while they're learning. And I have to assign the rocking chairs now because they argue over them. But even I had a student that just would be falling asleep, and I put him up in the rocking chair, and he can answer questions, and he stays awake all the time now. It's important for students to be independent workers, but I think that none of us sit for long periods of time like this and have to learn. So I think movement is so important. I think also that in school we demand success in every subject. You need to be the best you can at math and reading and language, every single subject. It's important that a child is successful. But not everybody is successful at everything. And we find what we are best at, and that's what we do in life. Not everybody has to know everything there is about math to be successful in their profession. They might pick a job where something else is required of them because they're not as strong in math. I think only as a teacher do I have to be the best on. I'm self-contained, so I have to teach all the subjects, so I have to have my game on every subject, but in reality, life is not like this. You're not a success at every single thing. And we're quick to admit, I'm not so good at math or something like that, and that's why I chose this profession. But in the classroom, you pretty much have to be successful at everything. And that's not really what life is like. So I try to think about my students like that. One of my daughters, well, actually, all of my children struggle in math, and they are exemplary readers, but they all struggle in math. I did too. Well, I overcame that, and I know that they will too. They just were persistent at what they were doing. It doesn't mean I'm going to quit helping them. Of course I'm going to keep helping them, but I know that they are successful readers, and I build on those strengths and say, oh, you are such an amazing reader, and buy them more books, and when I should probably buy them more math books. I think we should understand the requirements, that there are no excuses, that these are the requirements, and as a parent that we need to be professional and say that this is what I've required of you. There are no excuses. I like to say no whining, no complaining, no excuses. And I'll start off, no whining, no complaining, and then my kids will say, no excuses, because they know that I'm not going to accept any excuses. Last night, my son did the dishes, and, well, he did half the dishes, and then the other half were in the sink. And I said, you know what? The requirements were that all the dishes needed to be done, not half of the dishes. I want the rest of the dishes done now. And those were the requirements. I didn't go do the rest of the dishes. I told him that he needed to go do the dishes. And he can huff and puff all he wants. I just let him go ahead with that. I'm not even going to say, I don't even say anything to him. I just let him go on. And then he comes around because he knows that that was the requirement. That's what she asked me to do. He got it done. When I walked back in, I had to go walk away and go do the laundry and then come back, so I wasn't standing there going, okay, do the dishes. But he got them done, and he wiped the counters clean, and everything was good for that day. I think we need to understand, also I want you to know that most of my children are attention deficit. So I understand the issues that come with this, and I've experienced having attention problems myself. But this does not give excuses for laziness, bad behavior, not paying attention in class. All of these things are completely required, and some of my kids are medicated and some are not, and I personally am not, and I've learned to compensate for having trouble paying attention. I take a lot of notes. I'd say to myself a lot of times, refuse distractions, and I have to tell myself out loud, refuse those distractions so that I can stay focused on what I need to learn. I really like reading and taking notes and highlighting more than I like paying attention to a person. It's just easier for me to reread and have just one variable, one black and white variable in front of me, and then instead of being a crowd of people and listening. And that's how the adjustments that I've made, and my kids understand. My kids know, and I know from personal experience, that you don't have to have an excuse. You make yourself pay attention. And this is what we have to do. Intrinsically, we have to teach kids to be able to do this. Let's see. I try to think of the happiest people that I know, and I guess there was some kind of research done on this that I learned about in the CD, but the happiest people that I know are confident, enthusiastic, they're curious, they're optimistic, and they're fearless. They will try anything and take a risk at things. They're confident in what they believe and what they do. These are the happiest people that I know. Also, I think I learned this lesson over and over. I don't seem to get it, and that's that we need to work on progress, not perfection. I so often want things to be perfect in little boxes and have yes or no, but we need to work on progress. One of my children, we were working on a plan to help her be more successful in her class. And I said, okay, this is what it needs to be. It needs to be, yes, I met the criteria in this area, or no, I did not meet the criteria in the area. And then we can total the points, and it'll be perfect or not perfect. And then we went by a day and another day, and every day she wasn't scoring any points because there wasn't any perfection. But there was progress. But because I didn't want to have progress, I wanted perfection, then we didn't have much success. You know, it looked like a lot of failure. And I know my daughter does best when she knows that she's doing well. So now we went 2-3-2-1 or 2-1-0 on the points, and she saw her progress. And for the last 4 days in a row, she's had all 8s, the total that she can have. And this has just worked so much better than to work on perfection and make sure that we work on progress instead. I think we need to understand the life of a child. And I think more than anything, I know what my kids, they get up very early in the morning. My children, they're up at 5:30, and I'm like, brush your teeth. Everything has to be done very quickly so that we're in the car at 6:13 is what time we get in the car. If my kids' lives are this busy, I can only imagine other kids and how their lives are so much. They're just as busy as my kids' lives. And we need to understand by the time they get in the classroom, everything's been rush, 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 rush. And they might have even ridden the bus that day. And I've heard tales of the bus before. And I know that the bus it's not always a happy place to be. You know, there's some put downs on the bus and just a lot of noise, very loud. I know when we go on field trips, it's very loud on the bus, so I can only imagine when they come and sit down in the classroom what they've gone through and to get there. We need to know what is going inside our child's minds. I think the days are emotionally taxing. Getting a score back and knowing that it's not perfect is taxing on the brain. And the brain has, I think one of my favorite things to do is brain research. And I love understanding how the mind works, that there are these neural pathways, and it's almost like a city inside our mind, and that the traffic lights sometimes in a child's mind, like my children, they're not always in sync. One light doesn't grow green, and then the next green, and then the next green. We have red, green, red, green, red, green, or sometimes we have red, 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 red. And the traffic lights are just all out of sync. And the dopamine is a chemical in the brain that assists the neurotransmitters, and it helps the brain cells communicate. It helps the traffic lights that may be out. The children like this that have the traffic lights that are out of sync, they have such a strong need for order and structure. And I see this in my own children. I have one of them that's a perfectionist, and every letter is erased and written, sometimes 3 to 5 times. She'll write a letter and erase it, and write a letter and erase it until it's perfect. She has such a need for order that even her writing has to be in order and sequence, because that's what she can control, and she just wants that order. That's one of the essential needs. Remember, we talked about order and stimulation and independence. I think I'm a lot more tolerant of students that tap their pens. So tap, 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 tap. That actually is an indicator that in their brain, they need to be stimulated. Their brain, for some reason, is understimulated, and they're trying to re-stimulate their brain. They're trying to reactivate their brain so they can learn. So I've done some compensating with that, other than just ignoring it and going, they're trying to get their brain on track by tapping, and that's okay. It's sometimes a distraction for other kids, so I think I grab a mouse pad and say, okay, tap on this if you could. And just be more positive about it, because they're trying to learn. They're trying to make themselves refocus. I think also I look around my house all the time, and kids that need order can't have a lot of disorder at home. A lot of, I guess, if your house is disorganized or things are out of place, everything needs to have a home and a place where it's supposed to be put back, and the kids need to be aware of all of these things. I look in each spot of my house and think, does this need order? Does this need order? Because kids that require order and structure, if they don't have it in their home, it's even more difficult for them, because their brain is searching for that. That's one of their needs that they have. They also have a need for that strong need of independence. And I see that a lot with my teenager and with my 21-year-old. Also that they want to be independent. That sometimes the things that my son that he does, huffing about the dishes, he wants to be an independent type of thing where he just does it on his own. And me telling him to do it is not meeting his need to be independent. I know this spring break he's supposed to be getting his driver's license, and that'll meet such a need of independence. I know he'll be excited to get his license and be able to go wherever he wants to go. Part of the issues might also be impulse control. And this also can happen from understimulation. They might have slow processing of what the teacher's saying or what you're saying if you're asking them to do something. Just try asking one direction at a time and don't load them up on too many directions, just one thing at a time. But also with the understimulation is, besides tapping, they could be noise makers, and they could be rolling their eyes. This is all part of their brain being understimulated. It's nothing against us. It has to do with them trying to get their needs met. I think of that, I guess when I walk in my classroom, I always look at this plant that I have. It's a bamboo plant. And I think about how the inside, knowing our kids on the inside and the out, and these needs that they have are like the roots. And we can't see the roots. So we have to look at the clues on the outside to see what the roots, what's down in the root that we need to take care of, because there's nothing we can do to the top that will help a child. We always have to look at the roots and see what we can do from the bottom up. That's where we're going to find that we're going to be able to help a child, and some of the solutions that come from. Now, the following are some solutions that I've learned. First of all, we need to slow life down. We need to positively meet these needs that they have of order, stimulation, and independence. There was a research study done that I learned about on the Kirk Martin CD that we actually only have 3 minutes of actual conversation a day with our child. Of actual conversation when they wake up, other than commands. So we need a relaxed time to be able to solve problems. We can't solve problems in a 3-minute time period, and we can't build relationships, so we need to slow life down. Look at what's going on, how many activities we're in, how many nights we're out late, and see if you can just slow life down. And then, like I talked about before, cut out clutter. See when in your house is cluttered and take care of those areas. You need to build in downtime. One of the ways that you can do this is just take off your clothes, sit down, grab a color crayon, sit down and color. Build traditions. I just keep thinking of more traditions that we could do. This last week we had pajamas and breakfast night on Thursday night, and I had everybody, as soon as we got home, put their pajamas on, and we made waffles and bacon and scrambled eggs, and we talked and laughed, and we all sat around the table. These are the things that they're going to remember a lifetime. And when we have this type of activity and traditions, then we have time to sit down and solve problems and just have fun together, know each other on a different level. Also, I think about, this was from the Kirk Martin CD, that circles need squares. Circles, some of my children are very eccentric and have wonderful ideas, and they're like circles without boundaries, and the squares are like boundaries. So we need to have organization and routines and schedules that we do. Specific bedtime, specific prayer time, this is when we're reading time, no TV. I'll say, choose a different rectangle, and that means that it's time to read a book instead of watching TV or playing with their Kindles. Also, to make the kids more organized, you can make notes for them of where specific things belong. And once they get the hang of it, you won't need the notes anymore. And then I think kids that need order, a lot of my children need order in their life. You can have them help you make the schedule. Have them help you make the rules and the consequences of your home. And then put it in the kitchen where everyone knows where it is. So everybody knows on this day, this is what's going to happen. So there aren't any random things that are going on. That everybody knows the schedule and there are no surprises. It really helps our kids that need order. It helps them to know what the plan is and to be consistent. Also, I think it's really important to make expectations clear and consistently remind your children constantly of what your requirements are. I always did that in the classroom, and I'd say, why isn't this working at home? Well, I didn't do the same thing as I did in my classroom. In my classroom, I consistently go, this isn't the tradition in our classroom. You raise your hand before you talk, and I remind them continuously of what my expectations are. Even when we walk down the hall, I'll say, okay, what are the expectations for the hallway? But when I go home, I maybe said it once, this is my expectation, I want you to have a clean room. But I wouldn't tell them specifically what needs to be done in order for your room to be clean and organized with planned in reminders. I need to make the expectation clear for at home too, and then I think that would be more, I would get better results. Because I always think of what things need to be done. If I want a different result, then I need to train differently for a different result. We need to take time out of our busy schedule and talk about the week's plan. I said to them when we had the pajamas and the breakfast, what do you want to do next Thursday? What would be a fun tradition for this Thursday? We talked about a few things. We're going to try kids cook nights. And we just want to make one night a week, 2 nights a week, a special time of a tradition. Besides that, we thought about we could have pizza and movie night. My kids thought of this. I don't know if I want to do this or not, but it's oldies night. My kids thought it would be fun to act like the 1800s. I'm not so sure that I want to give that a try, but they're interested in wearing bonnets and, I guess, cooking outside over the fire. You need to plan time to laugh and enjoy each other. They have to know that there is something other than school and that you will enjoy them no matter what they did at school, that you're enjoying them and their life. We cannot solve problems when anxiety is high and you're tense. So we need to plan in these times where we can relax together as a family and laugh. I think that it's also important to just say no for the fun of saying no sometimes. Can I go to my friend's house? No. Why? Because I said. Because not everything comes to us with yes attached. We need to know, how do we deal with no? And how do we deal with it? Well, we're going to practice it. When I say no, my expectation is that you will say, okay, I'll find something else to do. That's okay for now. Because as an adult, there's a lot of no's and there's not always yeses. So we need to know at home how to deal with no. So I do that with my kids. No, sorry. I kind of smile when I do it too. Just knowing that I'm helping them deal with life. I think it's really important also, everything's really important tonight, right? That we need to be strong emotionally. That not everything should be tied to your emotions when you're a parent. That you need to be a professional parent. Do everything with excellence. You can't discipline, you can't change things when you're angry. It doesn't work. When you're angry or upset, then they're just going to feed off of your emotion. And it just does not work. It doesn't make any progress when you're angry or upset. You have to deal with your emotions. If I'm emotional about a situation or an issue that's going on, I'm going to leave the room and I'm going to come back when I have my parenting face on, and then I can really deal with emotion instead of blurting out and yelling and then feeling guilty about what I did later. Now, I've learned all this, and I'm only speaking to you humbly because these things have happened to me. I've dealt with things emotionally before and then went back and said, I am so sorry. Mom made a mistake. I should have acted that way. I acted like a child. I don't want to act like a child. I want to be the adult, and I want to deal with things in a strong way so that they'll know that I was the parent, not the child. I think that saying yes to experiences is what we need to do. Experiences don't cost anything. Going to the park, going outside and running around and throwing the ball for the dog is free, and those experiences are what mean the most to our children. Also, disciplining consistently. If this is what you said, this is then it needs to happen. I hear people saying all the time, and I've made the same mistake, but I've said, okay, you cannot. I've packed up every one of my children's toys before and said, I'm taking them all to Goodwill. Every single last one of them. And then I look in the bag and go, I can't get rid of this. She's had this forever. And then I take out the ones that I like, because if I can't stand by what I said, then I can't do it. So I need to make promises that I'm going to keep up with. I really like what Kirk Martin said about saying, I promise something. I promise you that if you don't clean your room, then you're going to not go to your friend's house this weekend, because I don't want to break any promises. That way, they know that I made a promise to them, and I want to be a parent of integrity, that they can believe in me and trust in me and have faith that I said, this is a promise, this is what's going to happen. Just like if I say, we're going to go to somewhere out to eat. If I promise that, I want to stand by my promises, whether they're a consequence promise or a reward consequence. I want to stand by my promises. And that's what I mean by being consistent and having integrity. I think that's one of the most important values that we can have. To find out what the root problems are, we need to observe them and see what needs are they trying to meet. Try to figure out how to meet those needs positively. I know my son, he is such an excellent bike rider that he can actually ride a wheelie on his mountain bike all the way down the street. It's a half mile. Very cool. And one day he came to me and he said, you know, Mom, nobody cares if I can ride a wheelie halfway all the way down the street anymore. That's not what I'm being recognized for. They recognize kids for other things now, things that are not as promising and as cool as riding a wheelie down the street. So when he said that to me, I thought to myself, he wants to be recognized for doing something good, for being independent, and that's what he needs. He needs independence, and he needs to be recognized. And I think it's still cool, even if the other kids don't. I've videotaped him riding his wheelie down the street. Also, I think that when kids play video games, and I learned this from Kirk Martin too, that the reason they play these video games is because they're clear and they're consistent. And the rewards are in order. They understand, if I get this point, I get this reward. They are so clear about what the expectations are, and they're consistent. We need to learn from video games so that we can be more clear and consistent. Of course, it's a game, so the rewards are set up that way. But I understand when kids talk to me about video games now, I understand why they like them. We also need to make sure that dads and moms stand on the same page. They're a united front. If my husband's telling my son something that he needs to listen to, I want to go stand next to him, just as a physical reminder that to tell him we're on the same page. Dad and I, this is where we stand. That he understands that we're not divided. We both have the same value, and we're saying the same thing to him. Even if I don't say it, if I physically stand by my husband saying, I believe what Daddy's telling you. I think that we need to enforce consequences consistently with clear time and a clear direction. Think of, and this is what I talked just a minute ago about thinking about consequences as promises, and we don't ever want to break our consequences. I think also there are the whole idea of keys being your emotion, that if your child, you don't want to give your keys over to your child, because if your emotions were your child, you wouldn't just hand your keys, your emotions over and say, oh, my child made me mad. Because that's just like handing your keys over to them. That you keep your keys, your emotions are your own emotions. They don't make you a certain, kids don't make you a certain way. We choose to give our keys away. I had this talk with my daughter the other day because she said somebody in her class made her feel this way. And I said, you just gave your keys away. You let that person take control of your emotions. You say, and sometimes I have to say this out loud, I don't choose to give you my keys, and you keep your keys. So that's what I think about keys, our emotions. My favorite saying, even when I was in college, is the ball's in your court. I think about giving my child the option. I'll say, all right, I want you to wash the dishes, all right? This is your job to do. If you don't choose to do it, then there'll be a consequence. The ball's in your court. You get to decide. I've made the direction, and now you get to decide whether you're going to do it or not. Make sure that you are ready and willing to deal with the consequences. There's also a ball, a choice ball, where you have an actual ball that you put choice on, and you hand them the ball and say, it's your choice. You can have a fit right now and have a consequence, or you can deal with the problem respectfully. It's your choice. Give them the ball so they actually have something to hold on to while they think about what their decision needs to be. I think that few words are better, that we don't need to go to a dissertation about what the problem is. Say your child took something from you that didn't belong. We don't need to go into a dissertation about someday you're going to be in jail for this, and then you'll never get out, and then your children will go to jail. And just say, you know what, you stole that from me, you took that from me, that was not right for you to do. Do not do that again, and this is the consequence for that. I think that too many words don't need to be spoken. I think we also need to remember, praise often. Continually praise, praise, praise. When my daughter makes a good decision about her clothes, I just think every point of the step in the morning. Mornings are critical for us. My daughter has trouble getting dressed in the morning because of the clothes. She has some clothing issues. And every step, she'll put the shirt on, and I'll say, good choice on shirt. That is great. I love your hair. I love how you fixed your hair, and I like how you popped right out of bed, jumped up and got your own breakfast ready. I love it when you do that. And because I have two little ones, one of them hears the praise, and the other one's quick to do the same thing. So it's just like I get a 2-for-1. I praise one, and the other one follows. And then I praise the other one, and the other one goes, oh, she got praise for that. I'm going to do that too. And they kind of work together like that. We need to make sure that we build up positive connections related to their gifts and talents. One of my children, she's so gifted socially. There's probably not a teacher in the building that doesn't know my daughter. And I just praised her for that. I said, socially, you just know everybody. And then she just loves everybody too. She just has a heart for every single person she meets. And last night we were driving in the car, and one of the girls was not so happy. And the other girl was just like, well, what can I do for you? And the daughter that was upset said, you are so amazing. Even when I'm mean to you, you're still patient and loving and kind to me. And I praised both daughters because that was so amazing that they could be that way. That's their talent. Both of them had their gifts. I really like this saying too, and I think about this often. I always think, take captive your words. Take captive your words, because we've got to think, or another saying would be, did you chew on those words before you spit them out? Because a lot of times our words are so damaging, and if we just take captive those words, the ones that are negative, and think, how can I turn around and make this positive? How much more effective that would be in teaching our kids, because we want to teach them all the time. Being negative is not going to teach our children. Being positive is what's going to last. So take captive your words. I like to say that in my classroom all the time, because a lot of times I think you think a thought and then it just comes right out your mouth. And I think, take it captive before it comes out. Is that something that's going to be helpful or encouraging to someone now? Oh, if it's not, we don't need to say it. Watch out for the buts. Don't poison your home with negatives. There is actually, I guess there's some study where there's 10 negatives for every one positive in the home, and I think we really need to invert that number and make sure that we have 10 positives for every one. Notice all the positives, even if they're small. Build praise, and this is so critical to bringing calm and peace in your home. Just recognizing the positives, and recognize that we can only control ourselves. When my daughter goes off to school or my son goes off to school, they are in control of themselves. I didn't choose for them to misbehave. If I have a conference with one of my kids and they're talking about how they misbehaved, I did not take their behavior. I do not own their behavior. They own their behavior. And I've had to learn this. This is not something that came easy for me, because I think, oh, this is a representation of me and my parenting, but it is not. That's not how I taught my children to be. I've got to keep remembering that's their behavior, that's what they did. We can only really control ourselves. Remember that kids will push and they'll test every day. That's what they do. That's the way they were wired. They'll push and test you. Remember who runs the show. They don't run the show, we run the show. Take captive your words, just in case they try to run the show. But we got to make sure that we always run the show. I think it's so important to do everything with excellence. I want to be a parent that is an excellent parent. I'm not into mediocrity, and that's why I want to do more and more research so I can be an even better parent, because it's so important. It's such a value to do this job with excellence. More than any other job, this is what I leave behind. This is how I parent my children, is how they're going to parent their children, and it just continues on. And that's why it's so critical to know your child inside and out. Make calm your goal. I have a little ring that I wear around my neck, and it says calm on it. I even write on my refrigerator, calm, because it makes me think, when I look at that, I'm going to be calm, because anything else is not going to help my home be peaceful. and help me teach these children how to be awesome, excellent adults. We have to stay calm when kids are out of control. When people are not calm, they're irrational, and they make decisions that they regret later. Make Color Me Calm part of your home. Write calm on your hand, whatever you need to do to keep yourself calm. Most importantly, calm is efficient, and it's an effective way to run our homes, and that's what I want to leave you with. Be efficient and be calm. Thank you very much. This is Cressa Glenn at LaVergne Lake Elementary.